A flat tire in a Cleveland parking lot may have just changed the entire energy around the Browns franchise. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Because according to a story now spreading rapidly across Browns circles, Shedeur Sanders allegedly returned to the stadium less than 24 hours after a stadium worker helped him change a tire and handed her the keys to a brand new luxury SUV. No cameras, no giant press release, no carefully planned social media rollout. Just a quiet moment that somehow exploded into one of the biggest locker room stories of the offseason. Now, before we go any further, it's important to say this clearly. Reports surrounding the exact details are still largely based on internal buzz and fan discussions circulating online. But whether every detail is perfectly accurate or not, one thing is undeniable. The reaction inside Browns fandom has been massive. Because for the last 2 years, Shedeur Sanders has carried a strange narrative around him. Critics questioned his attitude. Some analysts labeled him overly flashy. Others pushed rumors suggesting he cared more about attention than leadership. But this story completely flipped the conversation upside down almost overnight. And according to growing speculation, veteran players inside the Browns building may have reacted even stronger than the fans did. That's what makes this situation fascinating. Because NFL locker rooms don't change from speeches. They don't suddenly become united because of motivational quotes or off-season interviews. Culture shifts happen through small moments players actually believe are real. And right now, many Browns fans think this parking lot story may have revealed more about Shedeur Sanders than any football highlight ever could. But the craziest part isn't even the SUV itself. It's what this moment may already be doing to the Browns locker room behind closed doors. According to growing reports circulating around Browns media circles, the story started with something incredibly ordinary. Late at night near the stadium, Shedeur Sanders was reportedly dealing with a flat tire when a woman working an overnight cleaning shift stopped to help him. What makes the story stand out is that she allegedly had no idea who he was at the time. There were no cameras around, no fans recording on phones, no viral setup waiting to happen. She simply saw someone needing help and decided to help. And according to the story now spreading online, that should have been the end of it. But less than a day later, reports claim Shedeur returned during her shift and handed her the keys to a white luxury SUV as a thank you gesture. The reason this story exploded so quickly is because it reportedly spread the old-fashioned way through conversations inside the building itself. Workers told co-workers, staff members told players, players told teammates. Within days, the entire Browns facility allegedly knew about it. That's important because fans immediately noticed something different about how this story surfaced. It didn't appear attached to a polished PR campaign. There wasn't some dramatic video package released by the team. In fact, many supporters online believe the story actually gained momentum precisely because it felt unscripted and personal rather than manufactured for attention. And almost instantly, people started connecting this moment to the criticism Shedeur has dealt with for years. For a long time, certain narratives painted him as overly focused on fame, branding, or attention. Critics questioned his priorities. Others suggested the spotlight surrounding him created distractions. But supporters now argue that moments like this completely clash with the image some people tried to build around him. Because gestures like this don't feel easy to fake. You can stage interviews. You can control social media posts. But according to many Browns fans reacting online, quietly returning to help someone who helped you when nobody was watching says something very different about a person's character. And apparently, the people reacting strongest weren't even the fans. It was the players inside the building themselves. The reason this story has gained so much attention isn't really about the vehicle itself. It's about what moments like this can do inside an NFL locker room. Because professional football teams are built on relationships far more than fans realize, and sometimes one genuine act changes how players view each other completely. According to growing buzz around Cleveland, several veteran players reportedly heard about the story before it even reached social media. That detail matters because locker rooms pay attention to authenticity. Players can usually tell the difference between something done for cameras and something done because that's genuinely who a person is. And when teammates believe something is real, it changes things. One of the biggest examples involves offensive linemen. Fans often forget how personal that position becomes emotionally. Offensive linemen spend entire games protecting the quarterback physically. Their bodies take punishment constantly to keep that player upright. So naturally, the way they feel about the quarterback matters more than people think. Several analysts discussing the situation pointed out something interesting. When players believe their quarterback genuinely respects people around him, protecting him stops feeling like just another assignment. It becomes personal. That's a huge cultural shift. Because according to many Browns fans, previous eras inside the organization often felt disconnected. Reports and rumors over the years suggested tensions between star players, staff members, and the overall locker room atmosphere. Whether fully accurate or exaggerated, that perception became attached to Cleveland for a long time. Now compare that energy to what fans are hearing about Shedeur. Community appearances without media coverage, smaller acts of generosity, interactions with staff members, stories that feel human instead of corporate. Supporters online believe those details are slowly changing how people inside the organization emotionally connect with the team again. And in football, emotional connection matters. Teams with fractured locker rooms rarely survive adversity. The moment losing streaks begin, cracks spread everywhere. But teams where players genuinely care about each other often fight through difficult stretches differently. That chemistry can influence communication, accountability, and even effort during difficult moments late in the season. Of course, nobody saying one story magically transforms a franchise overnight. But according to many Browns fans, this feels symbolic of something larger beginning to happen around the organization. Something more human, more connected, more stable. And that's exactly why comparisons to previous Browns eras are suddenly becoming unavoidable. For years, one of the biggest criticisms surrounding the Cleveland Browns had nothing to do with talent. It was the feeling that the organization constantly operated under tension, coaching instability, quarterback drama, rumors leaking from inside the building, public frustration. Everything always seemed heavy around the franchise, even during moments when the roster itself looked promising on paper. That's why this Shedeur Sanders story is hitting Browns fans differently. Because according to growing reactions online, many supporters don't just see this as a nice gesture. They see it as evidence that the emotional energy surrounding the team may finally be changing. And honestly, after years of chaos, Browns fans are desperate for that kind of shift. What makes this situation interesting is how naturally these stories keep appearing around Shedeur. Reports suggest this wasn't even the first quiet act of generosity tied to him since arriving in Cleveland. Fans have pointed to community interactions, smaller moments with supporters, and stories involving people around the organization that never became massive headlines publicly. That consistency matters. NFL players do charity events all the time, but locker rooms usually notice when kindness feels performative versus when it feels authentic. And according to many Browns fans discussing this online, the stories around Shedeur keep sounding personal instead of staged. That creates trust. It also creates emotional buy-in from teammates, staff members, and even fans who may have originally doubted him. Some supporters online admitted they initially bought into the diva narrative critics pushed before the draft process. But moments like this are making people completely rethink those assumptions. And that shift matters because public perception in the NFL can become reality very quickly. Once fans emotionally connect with a player, everything changes. Jerseys sell faster, mistakes get more patience, teammates defend him harder, media narratives soften, momentum builds naturally. And right now, Browns fans seem increasingly convinced that Shedeur Sanders may represent the first genuinely hopeful cultural reset this franchise has experienced in years. But the biggest change might not be happening publicly at all. According to some analysts, the real transformation could be happening quietly behind closed doors, where locker room narratives are formed long before fans ever hear about them. One of the strangest parts of Shedeur Sanders' journey to the NFL has always been the disconnect between how teammates describe him and how certain public narratives tried to portray him. For months, rumors circulated questioning his focus, leadership, and attitude. Critics labeled him flashy. Some reports suggested he cared too much about celebrity culture. Others implied the spotlight surrounding the Sanders family created unnecessary distractions. But according to growing speculation around Cleveland, those narratives may be collapsing fast. And the reason is simple: locker rooms control narratives more than people realize. In the NFL, anonymous stories usually don't survive unless enough people inside a building are willing to quietly support them. That's how leaks spread. That's how reputations spiral. When teammates feel disconnected from a player emotionally, negative whispers gain momentum quickly because nobody feels motivated to stop them. But according to several analysts discussing Cleveland's current environment, the opposite may now be happening with Shedeur. Instead of isolation, reports suggest he's building genuine relationships inside the building. Coaches reportedly appreciate his preparation. Teammates seem increasingly comfortable around him. Fans are connecting with his personality, and stories like the parking lot incident only strengthen that emotional bond. That changes everything. Because once a locker room collectively starts viewing someone as authentic, criticism coming from outside, the building begins losing power internally. Players naturally defend people they believe in. Support staff rally around personalities who treat them respectfully. Small acts of kindness start carrying enormous emotional weight behind closed doors. Some fans online even believe the Browns are slowly eliminating the exact conditions that allowed negative narratives to grow around previous quarterback situations. Instead of tension and division, there appears to be growing alignment between younger players, veterans, coaches, and even support staff. Of course, that doesn't mean criticism disappears forever. The NFL is still brutally results-driven. If performances struggle, public pressure always returns eventually. But right now, many Browns supporters believe Shedeur is building something important before ever becoming a full-time starter: trust. And honestly, trust may matter more than any statistic during the early stages of building a franchise quarterback. Because Cleveland doesn't just need talent right now. It needs someone players actually want to follow. The NFL is filled with talented quarterbacks. Arm strength isn't rare anymore. Athleticism isn't rare either. What separates franchise quarterbacks long-term is usually something harder to measure: whether people inside the building genuinely believe in them as leaders. And according to growing conversations surrounding the Browns, Shedeur Sanders may already be creating that kind of connection early. What's interesting is that none of this seems driven by speeches or public declarations. Reports suggest Shedeur's impact is coming through smaller moments instead: interactions with staff members, community involvement, work ethic during practice. The kind of things players quietly notice long before fans ever hear about them publicly. That matters because NFL locker rooms can detect fake leadership instantly. Veteran players especially don't care about carefully crafted public images. They care about consistency. They care about whether a quarterback treats people respectfully when cameras aren't around. They care about whether someone handles pressure calmly and shows genuine investment in the people around him. And according to many Browns fans reacting online, Shedeur keeps checking those boxes. Some analysts even pointed out that this type of emotional leadership becomes especially important in franchises dealing with years of instability. Cleveland fans aren't just desperate for wins anymore. They're desperate for identity. They want someone who feels connected to the city, connected to teammates, and connected to the culture the organization is trying to rebuild. That's why this parking lot story exploded emotionally the way it did. It symbolized something bigger than football. It gave fans a glimpse of a quarterback who may actually understand that leadership extends beyond touchdowns and press conferences. And in a city that's endured years of quarterback disappointment, that emotional connection becomes incredibly powerful very quickly. Still, there's another side to all this excitement people can't ignore. Because moments like these don't just create admiration, they also create enormous expectations. And right now, the pressure surrounding Shedeur Sanders may be growing faster than anyone inside the Browns organization expected. As positive as this story has been for Shedeur Sanders' public image, it also creates a completely different challenge moving forward: expectations. Because once fans emotionally invest in a player this deeply, every single thing that happens afterward gets magnified. And right now, Browns fans are beginning to emotionally attach hope to Shedeur in a way that feels much bigger than normal rookie hype. That's dangerous territory in the NFL. The moment a quarterback becomes symbolic of a franchise's future, the pressure skyrockets instantly. Every throw gets analyzed harder. Every mistake becomes louder. Every practice clip turns into debate fuel across social media. And because Shedeur already entered the league carrying massive attention from his Colorado career and the Sanders family spotlight, the emotional weight surrounding him is growing even faster. Some analysts have already warned that Browns fans need to separate character praise from football evaluation. Being a good person doesn't automatically guarantee NFL success. Leadership matters, locker room chemistry matters, but eventually, quarterbacks are judged by wins, production, and performance under pressure. Critics still question aspects of Shedeur's game, including how quickly his style will fully translate against NFL defenses. Others argue the hype machine surrounding him may be accelerating too quickly before meaningful games even begin. At the same time, supporters believe moments like this matter precisely because football pressure eventually becomes overwhelming. They argue locker rooms rally harder around quarterbacks they genuinely respect as people, especially during losing streaks or difficult stretches of a season. And honestly, both sides probably have valid points. Because while this story may strengthen emotional belief around Shedeur, none of it changes the reality waiting ahead. NFL defenses won't care about viral kindness stories. Opposing pass rushers won't ease up because fans love him. The actual football side of this journey is still brutally difficult. But there's another reason this moment feels so important. It's not just about Shedeur individually anymore. According to growing reactions online, many Browns fans believe this story represents something much larger, a franchise finally trying to rebuild its emotional identity from the inside out. And if that process continues successfully, 2026 may end up becoming about far more than football wins alone. The reason this entire story keeps spreading isn't really because of the SUV. It's because Browns fans are starving for signs that the organization is finally becoming healthy again emotionally. For years, conversations surrounding Cleveland felt dominated by frustration, instability, and constant dysfunction. Even talented rosters somehow felt weighed down by drama or disappointment. But now, according to growing speculation around the fanbase, people are beginning to sense something different. Not perfection, not guaranteed success, just different energy. And energy matters in sports more than outsiders often realize. Some of the best teams in NFL history weren't simply more talented than everyone else. They trusted each other more. They played harder for each other. They believed in the culture inside the building. That emotional chemistry can completely reshape how franchises respond to adversity over the course of a long season. That's why many Browns supporters see this Shedeur Sanders story as symbolic. Not because giving someone a vehicle magically fixes football problems, but because moments like this create emotional momentum. They humanize players, they build connection, they slowly shift how teammates, staff members, and fans feel about the organization itself. And if Cleveland starts winning while these stories continue surfacing, the narrative around this franchise could change extremely fast. Fans would likely start viewing moments like the parking lot story as early signs of a cultural transformation. Analysts would revisit these stories as examples of leadership and chemistry developing before the wins arrived publicly. Suddenly, what seemed like a random off-season story could become part of the mythology surrounding a new Browns era. Of course, none of that is guaranteed. The NFL is unforgiving. Seasons collapse quickly. Hype disappears fast when losses pile up. But for the first time in a long time, many Browns fans believe the organization may finally be building something that feels emotionally sustainable instead of temporarily exciting. And honestly, that may be the most important development of all. Because sometimes franchises change because they find elite talent. But other times, they change because people inside the building finally start believing in each other again. When this story first started spreading online, a lot of people probably reacted the same way. They saw the headline, saw the SUV, and assumed it was just another viral off-season moment designed to dominate sports media for a few days before disappearing. But the deeper people looked into it, the more this situation started feeling like something completely different. Because the real story was never about the vehicle. It was about what the moment represented. According to growing reactions from Browns fans and analysts, this parking lot interaction revealed something the organization may have desperately needed for years: authentic emotional leadership. Not manufactured leadership built through slogans and press conferences, but the kind that quietly changes how people inside a building feel about each other. And honestly, that's why this moment has connected with so many people. For years, Cleveland has dealt with constant instability surrounding the quarterback position. Every season seemed to come with tension, drama, or disappointment attached to it somehow. Fans stopped trusting the process. Players reportedly dealt with fractured chemistry. The emotional foundation of the organization often felt shaky, even when talent existed on the roster. But now, many supporters believe the energy around the Browns is beginning to shift. Not because Shedeur has already proven himself as an NFL star. He hasn't. Not because one kind gesture automatically guarantees victories either. Football doesn't work that way, but because moments like this create belief. And belief inside locker rooms can become incredibly powerful over time. That's why this story continues growing. Because if the Browns eventually start winning, with Shedeur leading the way, fans are going to look back at moments like this differently. They'll remember the parking lot story. They'll remember the early signs of teammates rallying around him. They'll remember the growing emotional connection between the quarterback, the locker room, and the city itself. And maybe years from now, people inside Cleveland will point back to this exact moment and say something unexpected started there. Not during a game-winning touchdown. Not during a draft announcement. But quietly, late at night, in a parking lot, when a stranger stopped to help someone change a flat tire.